I'm proud and excited to announce that the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is now available. I've put the links to grab your copy from Amazon worldwide in the show notes, and I can't wait to see what you think. As a thank you for listening to the podcast, email podcast@rntfitness.com with your receipt, and we'll send you the free ebook version to start reading immediately. If you like a sneak peek of what's inside, you can download the first chapter at rntfitness.com/book. Also, you've heard me talking about the power of journaling for a long time, so I'm happy to announce we've now got customized RNT journals in store. There's a mix of prompts and freestyle writing, which you can take a glimpse of on rntfitness.com/journal. Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com, and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. On this episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by fellow RNT coach Kunal Makwana, aka Mr Kmak, to talk all about some of the recent government quote-unquote health initiatives in the UK and where it's all going to go wrong. We also dive into the power of a strong culture in any organisation, specifically what some of the building blocks of ours is at RNT and what we can learn from some of the best in sport. As a self-acclaimed sporting historian, Kmak gives anecdotes from different sports and what you can implement into your place of work for the better of everyone. So without further ado, let's dive in. Kmak, I got to say, this is probably the least sharp I've ever caught you on a podcast / Zoom.
Wait, really? I think I'm looking okay today. Like semi-decent. I wouldn't say I'm like super, super sharp, but it's not as bad.
Yeah, normally you're one of those guys that, you know, if you haven't got a skin fade on, you know something's up.
That's what I remember you said that one time to me about like, one of your mates is like, he's always got a skin fade.
Yeah, one of my mates, he every time, so I don't see him that often because he's not my direct friend.
Oh yeah.
But every time I see him, he looks like exactly the same. Like you never catch him on a bad day. And I found out he has a weekly booked in non-negotiable slot on Saturday with his barber every week. So,
but when he told me that, it made me think about it. I'm like, you know what? That's a great way to look after yourself. I'm like, I may need to do that. Do you remember last year I kept getting like every 10 days. It used to be like a slot. I used to look fresh every 10 days. It was ready.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like before, you used to have that on lock. I think lockdown got you. Lockdown like kind of slowed your barber visits, didn't they?
Well, I had to move barbers, right? I had to go to. There's one in my gym, inside the gym, right? And he cuts it there, but he has a booking slot. He's always busy.
Yeah.
So like he's literally cutting everyone's. I have to book him like 2 weeks in advance. So I can't afford just to go and say, "Hey man, can you just cut my hair?" It's just one that is impossible because he's got like a lot of barbers now change their business with a booking system.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more difficult, but it's a good thing, isn't it?
You also cheated on your barber, haven't you? Your long-term loyalty to that barber just disappeared.
Yeah, I hope he's not listening to this podcast.
For anyone who doesn't know, Kmak had this barber that he'd go to every single week, and it's got to the point now where apparently you said your brother is getting harassed by the barber asking where you are.
The thing is, the only reason I'm not going is because he doesn't have a booking system.
Yeah.
And I have to wait like 3 hours. And right now, waiting 3 hours is a bit too much. Until it calms down, and then maybe like, okay, you know what? It's a lot easier. And his barbershop is too small. So it's like, there's 20 people in there. It's coronavirus.
For like one barber, right?
There's coronavirus going on right now. So it's very, very, like literally I remember when it was lockdown happening, that day, you remember when Boris announced that gyms are closing, I was in the barbershop because I knew what's going to happen. There was a kid coughing like crazy and he was still cutting his hair. And he goes to the kid, "Are you okay? Do you think you have corona?" I'm like, he may have corona already. It's like, this is a joke. Yeah. I had to take 6 capsules of vitamin D. I had to make sure my recovery was on point. I was like, you know what? I don't want to have corona. And then I was just thinking about like, yeah, this is a bit nuts. And then I started cutting my own hair during lockdown. So it wasn't a bad thing.
Oh crap! So they probably saw the thing on the YouTube.
So for those watching on YouTube, they just probably just see me clap. Anytime I clap means, well, they're going to hear this on the actual podcast as well. So if you ever hear me clapping on a podcast, it's because we're telling our editor, the podcast editor, James, to cut that bit out. So yeah, you just caught me clapping.
Shout out James as well. Shout out James.
Yeah, big shout out to James Eid. If you're ever thinking about setting up your own podcast, get in touch with James Eid. I can always introduce you if necessary. And yeah, he's the best. He's the best in the business here, and responsible for getting us out on a weekly basis. So big shout out to James. Me and Kmak are big fans. We've been working with him for 2 years now, right?
Yeah, since
probably literally about 2 years. Yeah,
October 2018. I believe.
And this is going to come out early October, so it's our 2-year anniversary with James as well.
Happy anniversary, James.
Just on the concept of immunity, you're talking about COVID. Just give it another quick nugget there that you mentioned around vitamin D3. It's always a good reminder for people that if you're ever feeling symptoms of coming down with a cold, coming down with any sort of fever, anything, you might feel a bit run down. I don't know if how much the science matches up. I think from what I've read, there's a lot of data to support it. But anytime I take 20,000 IU of vitamin D3 for 3 to 5 days when I feel symptoms coming on board, it always does the trick, right?
Yeah, 100%. I take vitamin D quite religiously.
Yeah,
like on a day-to-day basis, especially like when COVID ramped up. I was just on vitamin D, and I think I told a lot of my clients the same thing.
I remember you were spreading. You were taking like 10 caps a day, man.
Do you remember? I was on COVID like alert before everyone else. I just kept telling everyone like, guys, COVID is coming through. Be aware of this stuff.
Yeah, because I remember I didn't know much about it, and this was like when the very early stages of it, like probably like early Feb. Like in the UK, people didn't really catch on yet. Yeah. And I remember I had a cough in the team meeting. Do you remember that? I had a cough. And every time I coughed, you were like, shit, Akash, you okay? Like, you sure you haven't got COVID? I'm like, I'm fine, man. I'm fine. It's just
I reckon you did have it. If you did like the antibody test, right, you probably come back and because you went Turkey as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember you went Turkey and then you actually got ill?
But I had the cough before Turkey.
Oh, you had it before. Okay.
I had it before Turkey. So I remember going there, and this was when it was just like the time we went, it was about 3-4 weeks before lockdown. So I remember going there, and I had this cough, and I was coughing, and everyone was looking at me, and I felt really and I was fine. Like I don't think I had it, but yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember you being on like full alert the whole time.
But that's good. I knew about it because I was at a Liverpool game, right?
Yeah.
And there was literally everyone was talking about it that very day. They were like, they're going to cancel the league. They're going to do this. And it was like, everyone was coughing. And I was like, what's going on at the moment? Everyone had a hand sanitizer next to them. My cousin gave me hand sanitizer when we were on the way to Anfield. He's like, here, take some. I'm like, what's going on right now? We don't normally use hand sanitizer, right? Before COVID, no one used it.
No.
So it was just one that I was like, okay, this is a bit weird. And then less than a month later, obviously the world changed.
Funny thing is the hand sanitizer thing brought back a lot of OCD tendencies I had back in the day. So I don't think I've ever said anything about this, but
I don't know about this.
About 10 years ago. So when I started uni, I lived with so this was the first time that I've been living with other people outside of my family, and the first year you don't really know who you're going to live with, right? You just kind of, it's the pick of the hat, isn't it? And I remember living with these there was 5 of us, and two of them particularly were so dirty. Like, they were just really dirty. And I didn't know the concept of this, right? And they were so dirty. And in that first term, everyone gets ill, right? You get the freshest flu and all of that. But I was constantly getting ill. Like every other week I had a cold. And when you go home and your mom's like, like she blames on everything that you're doing at university. Yeah. But it got to the point where I was so paranoid because how dirty the kitchen was, especially. And I'd clean up my bit, but it'd get dirty again. I'd be constantly washing my hands. So I'd be washing my hands in the kitchen, but then I'd go to my room to wipe it with my towel. So I didn't trust them using my towel. I was like,
you're walking out like that.
Yeah, walking out of that, going to my room to dry my hands because the shared towel is nasty. And then I wash my hands again in my room. And I had this real bad like OCD for a while actually. And my hands would get really, really dry. So when I come home for Christmas, my mom would be looking at me like something's happened. Like my whole hands would come red, and they were dry and they're peeling and everything. And so when this COVID stuff happened, I was thinking like, all those tendencies started coming back. I was worried for a period of time because I was washing my hands way more than normal. I was putting on things, but I was also thinking about other people. Like this is something that a lot of people suffer with, and some of the some of the habits and things that were being promoted, obviously for a good reason, but I think what we've yet to see is the mental health impact of COVID. I think there's already a lot of people who have had mental health struggles in the past 6 to 8 months, but I think the impact of it has yet to be defined and is yet to be seen. I think it's really going to be amplified as people come out. And this is from ages as young as 1 all the way up to however, mainly because of the disruption to schools. So I think that was it's just something I was reflecting the other day. It's just how that habit of the OCD I had for a while as well. It lasted for a while, and it wasn't the nicest thing to have. I don't know if you've ever suffered with anything like that.
So similar to you, I wouldn't say I suffer from OCD, but I started using the hand sanitizer quite a lot, and my hands got like super, super dry. And it was one that I just kept doing every single time like I went anywhere. Hand sanitizer, I kept it in my pocket, and I just kept using it every single time. Even if I like used the door or I used anything, it would just use it every minute. Yeah. And it became, again, it's alcohol as well, right? So it just becomes super, super dry. So I think I had that. And even now I've got it in my room. So like I'll still use it in any circumstance. I'll just be like, did I just go out to the shops, quickly use it? Yeah. So I think it's a good practice to have, but also like you said, the mental health aspect of.
Yeah, I think that's just the one aspect of it. I think human behavior in general is going to be interesting to see in the next couple of years. Like even social behavior, human behavior with how people interact with each other, and also be interesting to see like the impact on it when things are quote unquote normalized again, like how people will socialize, how people will interact in large groups. Or it could be a case that everyone just forgets. Like we've seen certain circumstances where you wouldn't even know something is happening, right? Like to be honest, in London, you don't even realize that anything's happening, right? It feels like it's just a normal city. You go into other cities and it's complete ghost town. So every city seems to be handling it in a completely different way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to be fair, London, so I was there a couple of weeks ago, and it felt like a ghost town, to be fair. It was just not a lot of people. Usually London is quite packed. And this wasn't the same. Everyone was wearing a mask in the tube, going out, everyone's having a mask, etc. But I do believe
that's good.
There's still some sort of normality, if that makes sense, because people are still they're still socializing. I think socialization is actually just increased after, since we've had these rules, because I think people missed that and they took it for granted. And now people are like, oh, you're going out? Yeah, I'll come out. Previously, you think about it and think, no, I don't want to go out. It's fine. Now a lot of people are saying yes, just because of maybe fear of missing out. I don't know, but I think that has to play a huge role. And I think you'll die back down potentially, especially as the winter months evolve. But it was interesting to see, with my clients as well, like everyone had loads of socials popping up, over the last month or so, especially with summer kind of dying down, and, the amount of socials as well.
Yeah. And I think, for me personally, lockdown really enforced my sense of purpose and why with what we do here, with what I do, the way I do it. And I know we've spoken about it a lot as a team in our shared purpose together. But how do you personally connect to your why on a daily basis? And have you noticed any sort of changes in the past 3 to 6 months with how you connect to this on a daily basis?
It probably reinforced it for me, because my biggest why has always been health. And I think it came back to it. And I kept telling everyone this as well, this is it's a pandemic, but your health is at risk. Your health is something that you need to look after. And without your health, who's mainly at risk at the moment, right? We saw the statistics. It's the elderly, people overweight. If you look at Boris as well, like Boris's new whole campaign is like, we want to be, I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like, health is now top of priority. But for me, that was always a top of priority since I was a young kid, basically. So it's just reinforced it, and it kind of brought it back to circle and just reminded me health is something that we can't take for granted. I always say a lot in check-ins to people that health is wealth. Without your health, what do you really have? Right?
Yeah. It baffles
for me,
me
that's a constant reminder.
Yeah, I mean, it baffles me that it's taken a pandemic for the government in particular to suddenly start putting campaigns together, and might I say poorly done campaigns as well. Getting these people looking like they're eating burgers on these big billboards in London doesn't make any sense. like what they haven't realized is that human behavior is you follow other humans, right? They have that following mindset, and you see someone, it looks like a burger, right? It doesn't look like a salad or anything like that. Right? They got this guy eating a burger. It's meant to be a healthy sandwich. And you see that, and you're going to want to do the same. Like it's an instant impulse. Like, oh yeah, I'll have one of those later on today. There's no inspiration to get fit or to look after your health. And it's taken a pandemic for the government to think, okay, yeah, let's put some sort of some campaign together. And then for those who are particular at risk, i.e. type 2 diabetics, let's put the soup and shake diet together, which is the biggest joke since, it doesn't make any sense.
Even if you look at like, the hospitals and stuff, like the food there is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like I know my grandma's been in hospital before and stuff like that. And, I always pay attention to diet first thing, because it's like, okay, you're in hospital, you need to be fed nutritiously. And then you see what's going on over there and you're like, what is this? You're just giving literally like a calf meal in hospitals, and you're like, what is going on in this situation? Yeah. So I do feel like, the government need to do something about this. I don't know, what's going to really happen. Will they just do this for the time being, and then it's like back on the back burner, and then it's like forget about health. We'll worry about something else. But it's something that needs to be kind of looked at. On a deeper level.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an institutional problem there. If you think about the NHS, I mean, if they really cared about health, like you said, the hospitals would be serving much better food than they are. They wouldn't be serving food that's probably aiding in diabetes as opposed to preventing it, right? Or trying to solve it. And, the whole ethos of just let's just give you meds. I think it's just the worst mindset to have. And the fact that so many, I don't want to generalize it, but a lot of doctors are still doing that, right? My dad, for example, he's just coming off, he's due to come off all his meds now. He's been on statins and different cholesterol meds for as long as I've known him. I think as long as I've been alive, for 20 years at least. And he's due to come off them now because of proper physical self-care. And like imagine if everyone in the country and the world did that. They pay attention to their health in the same way that we promote, because it works and it's better than going on meds. It's better than what's currently out there by the government and the institutions. And I don't think this is just the UK as well. This transcends across. I've had messages recently because we've been putting a few pieces of content around this, and I've had a few messages from doctors in the US, and they're saying, it's the same thing over here. Like
it's 10 times worse in my opinion in the US. Like I think I've told you a story before. When I was in the US, it was we were doing check-ins, me and Nate, one day, and we were in this like hotel lobby, and they had the TV, on, and I literally stopped, and there was an advert, and there was a doctor advertising weight loss surgery.
Yeah,
and it stopped me for about half an hour from doing check-ins because I was just baffled. And I looked at Nate, I was like, did you just see that? That's absolutely nuts, right? And we spent, a couple of days with clients and stuff, and it was just like, and they were telling us like loads of things like, yeah, this is what is normal in America. This isn't like, doing physical activity or doing it in a holistic way isn't normal. It's very much like, what's the closest, doctor to give you a surgery? And that's scary if you think about it. And I think to a large extent, we're quite lucky in England that we don't have that. Like, I think a lot more people are going to the gym, especially in the last 10 years, in my opinion. The trend is going up, which is a good sign. I think America's still at least 5 years behind, in my opinion.
Well, I would actually say the trend might be going up, but the trend in the right things, I don't think is going anywhere, because the trend is going up for quick fixes, new shiny objects, and weight loss surgery is just another shiny object, right? It's a quick fix to something, but it's not going to solve the behavior internally. It's not going to solve your identity when you're lied to. It's not going to solve your mindset, right? And all the other things that we know holistically builds a transformation. Whilst probably more people are going into the gym now than 10 years ago, whilst more people are paying attention to their health than 10 years ago, are they doing the right things, or are people just spinning their wheels? We see on a day-to-day basis people spinning their wheels, and yes, they're paying attention to their health, but the education is not out there. The education is wrong, and the education is out there is fixated on quick fixes, shiny objects, soup and shake. Like if you've got the Prime Minister of the UK saying the solution to type 2 diabetes is the soup and shake diet, we've got a real problem on our hands, because we know what's going to happen after they go on a soup and shake diet, right? they'll lose 40, 50 pounds
Massive
or whatever.
rebound,
They'll probably
like,
gain 100 pounds back. It's just not, and it's not a sustainable solution, is it? Like telling someone, yeah, you're going to eat soup and you're not even going to eat, you're going to drink soup and drink a shake for the rest of your life. It's not going to go to work on the deeper level. And we know that getting in shape, anyone can get in shape. Like you just have to eat better, train more, be more active, all of that stuff. Staying in shape is a whole different ballgame, because staying in shape requires an identity shift, a behavior change, and a mindset shift. You can't do that by drinking soup and shakes. Like you can't do that with a surgery. You have to put in the work, right? And that's why it's a holistic approach. It has to be a holistic approach. It's not, you can't differentiate between the two. You can't differentiate between the physical and the other elements. It has to be part of one approach. And that's why I think there's a crux of a transformation coach. A crux of a transformation coach is being able to handle any situation and being able to deal with what you have in front of you, deal with the person in front of you, and facilitate them on a long-term journey. Otherwise, how will people change? Really change.
I think also our industry, if you think about it, over the last 30 years, how many diets have been created? You know, you look at paleo, Atkins, keto, all of these diets have come in play. I also would blame, the industry. Industry needs to clear the muck first before we can clear everyone else up. And they're thinking. Yeah,
I mean, the industry itself is like one of the reasons why the industry pigeonholes themselves into physical only. And they think anything where you try and deal in holistic, you're suddenly trying to become a life coach, which is completely false. Because what you're doing is you're taking a holistic approach and you're dealing with transformation. If you only focus on the physical, all that's going to happen is that exact rebound, right? You have to have that extra layer. And I think that's what's really missing here.
100%. I think that's where, the industry also has to change in itself. I think, I don't know how long it will take. That's the thing, right? But it will be a progressive view where it'll be interesting to see what the next 5 years look like within the industry. Do the people in the industry, because there's still some coaches now who say, I do paleo, so I give all my clients paleo. Yeah. Right. And I've seen that. I've seen that literally. Yeah. You go on Instagram right now, you do a bit of half an hour research on it. You find out like what coach does paleo or keto, and they'll give you that. And it's like, it's quite frustrating because, as a coach, you shouldn't be doing that.
Dude, nothing frustrates me more when I hear people say I'm on the RNT diet. Like, you know what I mean? Like when people say I'm on the RNT diet, what is the RNT diet?
Yeah, I'm lost.
Like there is no such thing. And that's one thing when people ask, what's the diet like? I'm like, I don't know. It'll be according to your lifestyle. So right now, so we just released, we're going to release my mum and dad's case study. And this will actually come out the episode after or two after. So people would have heard it. And one of the things that was important to her was to show other people that she could continue eating her Indian vegetarian foods in a diet while still transforming. And she's done that. That's not quote unquote the RNT diet, right? People wouldn't associate that with the RNT diet. They think it's the RNT diet is chicken and broccoli, but it's not. There's no such thing. It's whatever works for you. And we've talked about this so much, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you're in a family group, I think you would realize it. So for the people on our Facebook family group, they would look at it because there's always different recipes posted every single day. There's always someone, and I'm like, that's completely different. Everyone has a different version of like a halloumi bake. Halloumi this, tofu this, oats is cooked in a different way. You cook it in a different way to like Mira Patel, for example. Minal cooks it in a different way to everyone else. Yeah. Right?
Where's your bowl?
Mine's simple. Like I'm just like mix it all up, done.
You're still using the instant Quakers, aren't you?
No. I'm using Scottish porridge oats.
Oh yeah, they're good. Yeah.
The one with the Scottish guy holding the thing like that.
Yeah. What do you put on your oats? Do you do the butter
stuff?
It's
whey. I use whey, peanut butter, pippin nut.
Yeah.
One of the best.
Yeah.
And I will use frozen blueberries.
Okay, so it's quite similar.
100 grams.
Yeah, quite similar.
Yeah, but I just don't spice it up and kind of, I don't want to take pictures of it. It's just, I used to back in the day, but it's like, I can't do it anymore. I'm just like, it's done. Because you don't think about it too much, right? You're like, I can take a picture of it.
Yeah. No, I get you. I mean, and this is exactly what you're saying. It's so spot on, and there's so much variety that can be spiced out of simple foods. And the key really is just healthy approach for 80% of the time, right? And it's finding something that works for your lifestyle. And that's the message that should be on those billboards that have been created by these campaigns, right? It should be promoting that message, and that's what we've got to keep pushing on.
What do you think Boris's diet is like?
I don't know. Apparently, he's got a personal trainer, but I'm not sure.
Joe Wicks?
No, I'm not sure who it is. I'm not sure if he's still doing it. I don't know. This could be all a PR stunt, right? So, yeah, let's see. Like, I think when elections come, it'll probably be a ramp up, and then after that, it'll be long forgotten again. It's just how it is, isn't it? It's just, yeah, we'll keep pushing, and if we've got anything to do with this, I'm sure there'll be a change sometime. Brilliant. So you talked about your why, and then we went on a completely off tangent there. And you talked about your why with being health as well. Can you just, I know you've spoken about it before, but it was probably on a podcast over 100 episodes ago. You want to explain what your why is and like why health has been so instilled into you from a young age?
Yeah, so it's twofold for me. So when I was about 7 years old, my dad passed away from lung cancer, and that probably had it switched a flick on the back of my mind about like health and why it's important, because obviously, my dad just got taken away from me. And when I was also, in the lead up to my teenage years, it was one that I realized, like, probably not teenage years, probably when I was about 19, 20 years old, just before I started RNT, I always looked at like our Asian people, Asian culture. And I realized like we've never had health at the forefront, number one. Number two, I've never seen Asian transformations in my life, right? Ever. It was just one that like, some people did a bit of fat loss. No one really shared pictures, none of that. So then when I became a personal trainer, that was one of my biggest visions, was like, I want to work with Indian people. Not saying I don't want to work with anyone else, but it was one of my biggest like whys, like I want to transform our people.
What you mean is you want to show it's possible, right?
Yeah, it showed possible, because obviously back in the day as well, it's be like, no, they got genetics. You hear it all about it. I remember when I was about 12 years old, I remember Ronaldo took his top off and had his abs and stuff, and we were all told like that's genetics and stuff like that. But really and truly, it was just his hard work that no one wanted to kind of accept, which is quite weird because Asians were quite hardworking in every other aspect in life. Again, to fitness, we were kind of like going into this shiny object, which I think is our fault or is not our fault. We don't know yet, but then as soon as I became a PT, that was one of my biggest aims. It was just like, I want to show it's possible, number one. And I also want to then transform not just their lives, but then have a domino effect to their families and future generations after that. Because, if we can kickstart something, everyone else will go ahead with that. And I think those are my like whys in a twofold, because it started from a young age for me because of my dad passing away, because I don't want, a kid to go through that right now, because I want their parents to take care of themselves. Obviously, cancer is something that anyone can get hit with, to be fair. But if you can look after yourself, you can look after other people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Asian stigma was definitely something in the back of my mind from right from the start of entering the career. I felt the force of the social stigma. So it's one of the reasons why I wrote the article. I speak about it so much because it's something I've personally been through so much, and it's been one thing I wanted to shape as well, and just showing that it's possible. It's there's always been a sort of genetic element to it. People think that the genetics worse, and funnily enough, there are a few papers actually showing that South Indians do have worse genetics to this, like with fat breakdown. I remember
fibers and stuff like that, right?
It was. There are a few papers on it, but I refuse to believe that should limit anyone. That should limit anyone from taking control of their health. The reality is, it's always been a priority issue in Asian society. As you said, like we're not afraid of hard work. It's misdirected hard work. What I mean by that is it's not. It's directed only in career and family. It's never directed to self-care. That's the problem, right? Ultimately, that's the problem. So with every transformation that we produce and show that's of Asian descent, it's another opportunity to show that it's possible, and that the platform and that there is potential for that to happen, because everyone can transform. This is another important thing. Everyone can transform. We facilitate people of all sorts of backgrounds. We work with people in over 20 countries. Every background you can think of, we work with. Anyone can transform, no matter what your struggle you've had, no matter what background, no matter what obstacle, anyone can transform. But if you can overcome a societal belief that's that's amazing, right? So yeah, I'm well with you on that. I think we're very aligned on that as well, just from a personal perspective. With regards to your other way, like, how do you think it shaped you as a person? Like, losing your father at a young age, how do you think it shaped you?
It made me kind of more aware about like what's important in life. I think, like I said about health, like it made me realize like actually, I can't. And the thing is, it didn't hit me straight away. Like, when I was still a chubby kid. So it wasn't like straight away I was like, I had a six pack at like 7 years old or anything like that. It was over time. I knew it was always in the back of my mind that I'm going to go into health. Yeah. I think I said this to my mom, and my mom was like, no, you're not. And I was told her like, this is something that I think I'd be very, very good at. I think I have even before like, the why, I always knew that was my why. It was always from the very beginning. And I think for me, it shaped me in a way that it made me more aware about like the pitfalls of like, if you're not taking care of yourself, or, if you're not, what could happen and how quickly it can be taken away from you. So I think I value, family a lot more. I value just life in a lot more. I think most people who've gone through, death in their family will always value life a lot more and appreciate the little things. Yeah. I think I appreciate the little things like a lot more. Like just a conversation with someone about, it could be about life, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I value that, and I always take away from that because I know that conversation may never happen again.
How do you think you processed it at a young age? Did you process it, or did you not process it till later?
I probably didn't process it till later because you don't know until, because I know my mom went through it like a lot, and I could see it with her. So for me, it wasn't like I didn't know what I was going through. For example, I know me and my brother were very much like, we became a lot closer, to be fair, and we were one that, and we still are quite close in that sense as well. But we didn't process it until we got older, like the impact of what it had, and how it's impacted me personally in terms of career. Yeah. Because I don't think, let's say if my dad was still alive, I don't know if I would be in fitness. If I was going to be truth be honest, like I don't know if would I be in fitness? I don't know. Would it be probably in like law, business, something like that?
Yeah.
So it shaped me in that sense as well.
It's interesting. Do you remember when we wrote chapters in Mark Stokes' book, Advice to Your Younger Self? One of the things I wrote about, mine was about the road less traveled, and one of the sparks for me as well was my first cousin who passed away when I was 15. And again, it was very subconscious that it happened just prior to me getting into fitness. Like if you look at the timeline, I started training very shortly after, but I don't think I ever thought about it at the time. It's only when I look back in hindsight, I look at the timelines, I think that was probably a spark for that. It was also a spark for me to start thinking outside of the paradigm of law that I was heading down. And because life is so short, he passed away when he was 19. So I think these sorts of things, they do play a subconscious thought in how you develop and the choices you make, without whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, until you reflect on it. Because I think when you're younger, I don't think you reflect on it like how you do now. I think we're a lot more mature about it. And like I'll reflect on it quite often. I'm like, yeah, with that, like I just said it there, like if my dad was still alive today, I don't know if I would be in fitness.
Yeah.
I may have trained, but I don't know if I would have cared as much. But it made me kind of, realize actually I want to take this very, very seriously, then make an impact with other people through basically the physical. So, and I think that's probably the biggest why I can have. Yeah. And I don't think it'll ever change, to be honest. Like, I think it'll always be there for me. There'll be some other whys that may evolve from it as it'll branch out, but I don't think that's the core why, in my opinion.
Yeah, to see other people transform.
Yeah.
And take charge of their health. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Completely shared there. And I think that's one of our, one of the best bits of our team and culture is that we have a shared vision and we have a shared why and shared purpose. And every, any sort of culture which is based on high performance, in my opinion, is underpinned with a shared vision and purpose. Like you have to be singing off the same hymn sheet and doing it for a very similar reason. And it's one of our biggest strengths. And we've been talking a lot about culture, just myself and me and you, like separately. We talk about a lot about our culture and what defines it and what makes up a high performance podcast. And I know we always like making sports analogies and various mafia analogies. And we haven't done a podcast on the mafia in a while. So, we could probably weave that in somewhere, especially because I'm watching The Sopranos again.
We can discuss that for sure.
So, like, what do you think is the crux of a high performance culture, based on the way we operate, and from what I know, you
What
call
I've
yourself a
seen as well,
sport
right?
historian, part-time sport historian. We can weave that in, but potentially we start with us. And what makes it special to work here, and also the team environment that people can also take on board for their own teams if they're in one.
I think you said it just slightly earlier there about shared vision. I think without a shared vision, it's very, very difficult to have a same goal and then perform, at a high level. So I think we will have like a common goal. I think every single time I look at, an athlete talking about what was so good about their culture or what made them win was we all had a common goal, regardless of gender, background, anything. It's like we all want the best for our clients, right? We all want them to win effectively, and we want them to change, not just themselves, but also, future generations that they've got. So for us, I think it's number one, the shared vision. I think we're quite transparent as a company. We're very honest. I think honesty goes a long way, in my opinion. I think if you're not honest with each other, that can also be damaging. I don't think it actually helps a culture. In fact, that probably damages it because you're always lying to each other, and then, ultimately, then it cracks open, basically. So I think being honest with each other, having a shared vision, is probably, for me, two of those things that will ultimately help people win. And again, if it's you could probably relate to this, someone who's opened up a business and started this and founded this without shared vision. I don't think, and if not everyone had that shared vision, we wouldn't have that team.
No. Like if we didn't have the same reason to exist, we wouldn't be here together to have this conversation. Our why is very closely aligned, which means we can do great things together, and that's the crux of it. Like a shared purpose. I think one of the strengths that, and I'm really a strong believer that every company should have a strong purpose. I like talking especially with people who are either in companies or running companies. I don't think either or, it doesn't matter. Having a purpose for the company is important, but also having a purpose yourself in the company is important as well. And marrying the two, the individual and the collective, is vitally critical for to actually facilitate a transformation within a company itself.
It creates transformation within the individual too.
Yeah.
Because if you can't transform the individual, it's hard to transform everyone
I think
else.
what it does is it also allows you to what happens is you take on a mindset of relentless duty. Like you start wanting to, I think, quote unquote, find the edges. You've probably heard that, like marginal gains. You've heard those kind of words thrown around, right? Especially in high performance context in sport, like finding the 1% or the edges of the marginal gains. And you only do that if you have a real purpose and a real drive to want to do it. You don't do it for any other reasons, right? Like we've heard, if we just think about like some of the most successful sports teams, they all did it because they wanted to win, and they wanted to leave a legacy in the team they were in. You don't do it for any other reasons. You need to have that underlying purpose to want to go and find the edges. And I think I was really reflecting on a lot recently about what makes high performance. And the first thing that comes to mind is always purpose. I think purpose is what gets you to, first it gets you to wake up, but also gets you to push when it gets difficult, because it's not always going to be smooth sailing, right? And having that shared purpose is critical. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I want to mention is, we were listening to Rio Ferdinand talk about Manchester United, and I think, so I'm the Man United supporter, you're a Liverpool fan, but if we take away those biases, both teams have got periods in their timeline where they were extremely high performers. Obviously, Liverpool right now are the best in the UK anyway, and United had that period of about 20 years where they had about three teams which were incredible. And you mentioned this thing around Ben Foster. The Ben Foster, the goalkeeper, he was new to the team, and he came on. They just won the cup, and Ben Foster was wondering why everyone was like not even near the cup. They weren't even celebrating. They weren't even in the cup because they were thinking about how do we find the edges to get to the next level. And I think that's a real, when I heard it, I was like, I can relate to that, I especially struggle to celebrate those small wins, which is probably why we have to do those sessions where, as a team, we celebrate the small wins, because otherwise, it's very easy to just keep moving on. But I think what it really underpins is a drive to strive for excellence.
Yeah, I think he said something which was, and his winning mentality changed because of his environment. I think if you listen to podcasts, it was very much like, West Ham was cool. It was a great transition actually, because he went from like a team that was fighting relegation, throughout his like early career, and they went to Leeds where they were fighting for top 4. So they weren't quite elite yet, but they were still, an amazing team. And then he went to United where it was, like you said, ruthless consistency. They were just ruthless about it. Roy Keane mentioned something similar, but he has like a different opinion altogether, because what happened between, and it's interesting as well with him as well, and what happened with him, like how he left United. And that's also, but there's still parallels when I heard both conversations. Roy Keane was last year.
What did Roy Keane say? Like what?
Roy Keane said it was a machine, the culture at United. He said it was just, we knew what was happening, but the machine started 10 years before we arrived. So they already knew, like he didn't come in or Rio Ferdinand didn't come in and say, what are the rules or anything like that. The dressing room already knew the rules.
Yeah.
The rules were already laid out.
Yeah.
They were laid out, like I said, 15 years before. Roy Keane had the same thing.
Yeah.
But he was still in a transition period. But it was very interesting listening to both and how there's still parallels to that. Listen to Gary Neville. I'm a Liverpool fan for most of you guys, so a lot of you guys thinking, I just listen to United players, but
he's a secret United fan.
No, but I like, not necessarily winning, but I like people who won, but then I want to understand how they won. Is one of my biggest like curiosities in life. It's like, okay, this athlete won. What made him so great, or what made her so great, is very, very important to me, because I've grew up a massive, massive sports fan. Like I follow a lot of sports. You've seen me go to America to watch sports, basically. And to me, I got to see 2 athletes who were at the top of their game, and then year 17. As an athlete, it's hard to be 17 years in the game.
Yeah.
In Tom Brady and LeBron James, and I'm like, LeBron's been famous since he was 16 years old, with like the pressure he has, and he gets scrutinized like crazy. And I'm like, how does he deal with the mental capacity of that? How does he deal with winning, chasing Jordan, social justice? All of those things that come into play, but still be great at what he does.
Why does he get scrutinized?
Because they say he's not Jordan, number one. He's not clutch. All of those things. Like these
haters, yeah.
I think it's haters, but it's also like, this is TV. Like in America, they have sports shows, they have sports debate shows, right? Which are quite popular, very, very popular. And they constantly just, have the same story. If LeBron misses one shot, that's the story for the next week or the next 2 days, right? Yeah. So it's very different culture to what we have in England.
Well, that takes a lot of resilience to be able to keep pushing forwards, right?
Yeah, that's, for me, he's in my opinion, he's probably my favorite athlete of all time, because like, forget the winning.
Yeah.
He's won 3 championships, but he's won what he's gone through in his life from 16 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Until in his 30s now, and what he's created he's created like a legacy for his friends. His friend is his agent. He's got 4 friends that run his business.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
It's a pretty cool story. Like, I think for me, it's like very holistic in everything that he's done.
Yeah.
He's never had a parking fine. He's never had anything, no trouble. He's basically a teen star that came into the league and has been dominant for the last 15 years. That's hard to do in any sport, in my opinion.
So what do you think when he goes, so he's not winning anything alone, right? He's winning things in teams when he does. What do you think defines, like, if you said it, you call yourself a sporting historian. What have you found as commonalities in your studies in terms of culture that promotes winning?
So for him, when he said about team, there's actually a period where he's actually taken a bad team to the finals, and he's actually been scrutinized because of that. So like,
can't win.
If we look at he can't win. So he can't win. Like, if you look at Jordan, we remember his doc, and you saw him losing in early stages of his life, right?
Yeah.
LeBron was so good that he took a bad team to the finals.
Okay.
And if you lose a final, you're not Jordan anymore. That's how like America sees you. If you have an asterisk and that like you're not 6-0, you've lost the final, you're gone. You're not the GOAT. But people are like, hold on, we've got to stop here. He's taken a really, really bad team, carried them through, to the finals. They still lost 4-0, but he still carried them. And this was in 2007 when I was in high school, when I started high school. Today, he's in the Western Conference finals and I'm 25 years old. So that's a crazy gap for me in terms of like from high school when I first started. So I've finished high school, college, university. I'm in my adult years now and he's in the finals still. So for me, what makes a team great usually is something that we said earlier, is common goal, respecting everyone, being a team player. I think being a team player is very important. I think ego is one.
What do you think makes a team player?
Being selfless in the goal. I think you can't be saying I when there is team involved. I think unless you want to go to a team, unless you want to go to a solo sport, be Floyd Mayweather, Serena, etc. Then do it. Even then, they've still got teams.
Then they go. Yeah, I was gonna say they got amazing teams, right?
Yeah, but like ultimately, it's just them there. But when you talk about being a team player, it's being selfless. I personally believe, and if you're not selfless, it shows. That's when ego kicks in, etc.
What do you think selfless means? What defines selfless behavior?
Being there for the common goal. So like if you can't do, let's say, something that means that you're not going to be in the best possible position yourself, but you mean the team is going to win, you've got to accept that for the team. Like you got to say to yourself, no, the team wins here. It's like athletes talk about a lot. Like I'd rather score 0 points and let the team win than me scoring 30 and we lose. What does that matter? Mm-hmm. That to me is selfless behavior.
Do you think many people have that?
In our industry or just in general?
Just general. You can be specific if you want. You could be broad.
It's hard to tell because I'm stuck in the bubble of just sports. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, use sport then, as an example. Do many have that, or do most let ego get in the way?
Probably not, because how many teams win, and it's the same.
Good question. That's a really good answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and how many teams? Like the same teams always win, right?
I would say like Liverpool really nailed that this year. Like looking from the outside in, they have Salah, but they don't have that. They don't have the Ronaldo sort of thing. They don't have one guy who just stands out, do they? Like they're all amazing. That's what I found this year. I remember we were talking about this on a walk on the way to the gym earlier this year. We were talking about how there's no superstar per se in Liverpool, right? They got Salah's like their scorer, but there's no superstar per se. They're all just very good, and they're all just very team oriented.
Yeah, this is when like a philosophy.
Yeah,
and you can work towards that philosophy, and I think you buy into a coach like Jurgen Klopp. I still listen to him to this day, and I'm like, yeah, we could run through a brick wall for this guy.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, he's going to get built a statue in Liverpool, and he'll probably manage us for like 9-10 years.
Yeah, the cop and the clock. Yeah,
that's a good saying. To be fair, I'll put that in the show notes. To be fair,
what do you think makes him? What do you think makes him a good coach then?
He's one of the key things that when I listen to a lot of people talk about, and I've read loads of articles.
Yeah,
he's very, very good with people. He understands people, and he understands like what makes people tick. Like he knows when to push people's buttons. He knows when to give people a hug. Like you see on touchlines. I was there against Leicester last year when we won 2-1 and we scored a last minute penalty. Every Liverpool fan stayed because he does this thing where he goes like this, and he goes 1, 2, 3, and then he's like literally just elevates the whole crowd.
Yeah.
And he does that with every stand. So one corner there, and he turned to us lot, and we just went crazy. And that's just him just going like a fist pump.
Yeah.
Right? So he understands, I think, the fans, he understands the common person, I think is powerful, because there's an amazing article on him how he could run like a Fortune 500 company. He got hired by our owners, John Henry, and they're very like frugal about certain things. And the guy who hired him was called Mike Gordon. He's a director. And he talked about how this guy could run so many companies. And this is why he makes him a perfect football manager.
Yeah.
It was between him and Carlo Ancelotti that we wanted. And he was like, Carlo's kind of old. He's got his philosophy. We don't know what we want here. Jurgen Klopp ticks every box possible. And it was just powerful, like reading that and just kind of seeing it come into fruition like 4 years later. And even in his press conference, he said, I think in 4 years' time we'll win the league. And at that point, it's like, we were not great. We were like finishing 8th in the league. We were like 4th in the league. What's going on over here? I mean, we'll finish first in 4 years. And he was quite confident about it. And he's won every way he's been, effectively. So serial winner as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely drawn to the guy. Like I'm a United fan, but I respect Klopp. I think he's an excellent manager. And I think he really knows how to. You know what he's done? I think he's just created that ethos of selflessness within the team. That they all just want to win collectively. There's no one there that's trying to take the limelight. There's no one there that's got too much of an ego that they can't sit on the bench for a day. Like he does a lot of rotation as well, right?
Not really.
Was that someone else? Oh, that's Guardiola this year, right?
But even Guardiola's philosophy as well is he's very much fixated. He's still good with people, in my opinion. But to a large degree, I've heard like he's quite cold, etc. But he's still very good with people. Mourinho is very good with people.
They just want to win, though, right? That's all they have. They have that infectious desire to want to win and to want to achieve a goal together.
Yeah,
and then they just draw people together. Sorry.
Most managers also are very good psychologists.
Yeah.
Damien Hughes said that. He's in the podcast with Jake Humphries for the high performance one that I showed you. He said something where like every manager is a very, very good psychologist because they can read the person, they can read the room. That's how they can get the best out of a person. Because ultimately, the X's and O's matter all the time, right? In football, X's and O's is great. But when I watch more about behind the scenes, it's never that. It's actually them having a conversation. How can I get the best out of you? What can I do here? This is what you need to do to get to this position. But the X's and O's is not shown as much. I've watched loads of sports documentaries in my life, and a lot of it is just man management, psychology, and being on top of that. And I think it's powerful. When I was looking, I was like, that's the common trait I've got now from every doc I've seen, every article I've read, and I read quite a lot about sporting cultures and just articles that fascinate me a lot.
Well, if you take that to the realm of what we do, what we've learned a lot is that if you focus on nurturing the person, i.e. the coach, the X's and O's will come because the X's and O's are easy. Like you just have to deliver on a checklist, transformation checklist, right? The nutrition, training, etc. Lifestyle.
And not overcomplicating it, I think.
Yeah, I mean the coach is X and O, so anything to do with lifestyle. But what makes a coach thrive is exactly that. It's them having ownership, responsibility, nurturing. It's all these elements that then allow them to go and facilitate a journey better. Does that make sense? Like giving someone ownership and responsibility, and then they can go and take initiative on themselves, and that's key.
Creates autonomy.
Yeah, because then if they combine that with a purpose, then you've created a superstar.
High performer.
Yeah, you create a high performer. Yeah, because then they can deliver on the X's and O's, which are less complicated.
Yeah, it's powerful. That.
Interesting. So in terms of your own high performer practices, what kind of things do you do on a day-to-day basis to keep yourself performing on a high level?
So for me, I've always had this word, which is consistency.
Yeah.
I want to be consistent in what I want to do. So firstly, it's always about learning. I think I'm never too young, too old to be learning. So I think always constantly striving to I'm quite a curious individual, to be honest. So a lot of things in life fascinate me. Whether it's we talk about mafia, I'll go deep into reading about the mafia and the economics of that. If it's a football manager and coaching and their psychology, I want to read up on that. Or if it's going to be watching a documentary. So for me, it's learning, number one. And then number two, it's being consistent on a day-to-day basis in what I do. Because when I first started RNT, it was more about learning about how I can be a best coach. Now I've kind of learned about I'm a decent coach. How now can I do that on a consistent basis? Because consistency delivers results for me. If I'm not consistent, then everyone else kind of, the business falters. Everyone else kind of I falter. So I take that kind of ownership for myself. So for me, without consistency, you don't create longevity. And without longevity, you don't create a legacy.
It's like starting versus staying power, right? Anyone can start something. It's easy to start something. Can you stay there though?
Yeah.
Right.
So for me, it's about
Same thing, getting in shape and staying in shape, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's that if we can use our kind of
you've got into shape,
exactly
now you want to learn how to stay in shape.
Yeah, and it's about all those habits that you've had to get in shape. You need to keep them.
Yeah.
In if you want to stay in shape, you have to keep at least 80% of those habits. Otherwise, forget being in shape.
So how do you cultivate these practices?
Consistency, on a day-to-day basis.
So what cultivates these consistent habits? Like how are you staying? What are you doing to stay consistent ultimately?
So routine, essentially like my 3 S's. I think I have a routine on a Monday to Friday where I'm quite diligent in what I want to do. I have non-negotiables. Small things like time tracking. For me, it's making sure am I efficient, but also where am I wasting time? Am I wasting time somewhere? Do I need to be wasting that time? So for me, it's about making sure I'm consistent on my non-negotiables as well. The process always wins, right? If you can be the process driven with your high performing habits, that creates high performance in itself. So for me, it's about being consistent in that. And my non-negotiables, my 3 S's, because ultimately it's your 3 S's that can start this. It's like kickstarting a transformation. You need your 3 S's first. Without that, it's very, very difficult to go through a transformation, right? So it's the same thing for me. It's just on a high performer level.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any specific rules that you have to you sort of live by that allow you to be a high performer?
Yeah. So number one, like I said, learning. So I have my morning slot, which is I want to. So it may be like the athletic. If it's I want to go dive deep into, because you can learn from any industry, right? In my opinion, like that's my kind of saying. It's like you can learn from anyone. So it could be like I'm going to dive deep into. I've got a subscription based on high like journalism in sports. So I read up on that, and it's like loads of different sports.
I can see you doing a bit of journalism on sports one day.
Could be possible.
Like start writing a weekend feature.
Well, I did in 2013. I did do something for a bookmaker we were good friends with in high school, and my mate worked for him because he was like a maths genius.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to speak to me about it because he was like, "You always predict things quite well within sports." And I was like, "Okay, let's talk about it." And then he made me like do the Euro 2012 actually. He made me write like a blog about who do well.
Okay. You do well?
And I think I had Spain as winners, and yeah, they came out as winners as well. Because obviously tiki taka was like the biggest thing. Football was changing. The dynamic was changing. And we took Andy Carroll, 6'7". That striker was gone. It was a dinosaur. So I wrote about that. I need to find it, to be honest, but I'll try and find it.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I did that because I'm really passionate about sports, right? I'm very passionate about like football. I'm very passionate about like the NFL, NBA, and those are like 3 of my key like sports that I've learned a lot about, even in life, and how you can be the best. And you can learn a lot from like just seeing people and seeing people win, and you can like take a lot of habits from there. And I think I've always done that from even before I started RNT. Like I was like, okay, I know how Kobe did it. I know how Ron's doing it right now. How can I take their habits, on a day-to-day basis, and how can I utilize that for myself? I'm not going to be them, but I can still take parts of them. Like someone like Jay-Z is a good inspiration. A lot of these, even rappers that we just look at as rappers, but they've done a lot of stuff in the industry. Yeah. That they've changed, and you've got to like look at it and think that's powerful. That's
one of the reasons why I think we enjoy reading and looking about the mafia, is that it's not that we're romanticized by the whole idea of it. It's more like there's a lot to learn from them. They just got an illegal product. That's all it is, right? Their product is illegal, or their way of doing business is illegal, but everything else is exactly the same, right? It's all about culture, people, performance. It's the same thing. It's just different. It's just a different product, right?
Yeah, it's just involves killing and like I said, illegal products.
The stuff they do is just illegal. That's it. That's the only difference.
Yeah, but if you take away all of that, you're still like looking at it from a business viewpoint, thinking, "Wow, what makes them successful?"
I'm watching Sopranos again for like however many times I'm watching it. And I watch it, but I'm trying to study like how why is Silvio Dante and Paulie, what are they doing to like help Tony, and how are they working together, and like, you know, all these sorts of things. And how do new people come into the ranks, and like how do people get promoted, and you know, all these interesting things to watch, and like their rituals with the ometa, and when they do the pricking of the thumb, and that's just their culture. Like how do they perform their cultural habits? So yeah, it's just fascinating. I think that's what we both shared that passion, and in different in rapping as well, in sort of the hip hop world as well, and various different fields. So you said, so which ones? What did you say your high performing habits are? I don't think you talked about the sports stars. You didn't mention yours. You said 3 S's. So
learning, number one.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Learning, being consistent. In what I want to like do, and what's number 3? I'd say probably ownership as well. Like I think taking ownership on like you want to be the best. Like you have to take ownership in that. Mm-hmm. You can't just expect to. Like I remember I said to you, I want to be the best possible trainer, right? Like from day one. And my goal has always been that, like, but then I realized there's a process to being the best possible trainer. It isn't just like, oh yeah, I'm with RNT now, I'm the best possible trainer. It's like, there's still levels to this. And it's still like, you need to, actually go learn the process, go do the hard yards that people don't see. People can see like, oh yeah, you got a result, amazing. Like you're a good coach now, but like, it's still a process for me to get there. And I'm still not there yet. And in my opinion, I don't think I'll ever get there. It's very similar to like a golf. Like I'm playing golf a lot nowadays, but like you don't become the best. Golf is something that evolves, and you don't become. There's always something to learn about. I think that's the same thing with me, and that's the approach that I will always have.
Do you know why you'll never get there though?
Because you're always striving to still be the best, and you don't know what's best yet.
Yeah, and that, but also you're always continuously coaching an evolving journey. So the journey is always evolving. The one we try and coach, because it's always evolving. How you define good is continuously evolving. For a period of time at the beginning of RNT, what good was how well can you get someone to a checkpoint, right? Now, the definition of good in my eyes is completely different. It's like, can you keep someone in shape? Can you improve them? Can you activate the vehicle? It's a whole different ballgame. And that will continuously, the benchmark will continuously move. Because what we do as coaches will continuously move. Before we used to call ourselves online personal trainers, then it was body transformation coach. Now it's transformation coach, because the benchmark of what we do as a collective is evolving and going to another level and continuously improving, because we're always looking at self-mastery, and we're obsessed with self-mastery and how to improve what we do how to improve what we do so we can provide a better selfless service, as you mentioned earlier on. Yeah, that's the interesting conundrum, right?
We've got different trophies to win. That's what
exactly. It's like you could probably got a sport analogy here somewhere. I'm waiting for it. Like, what's the analogy here?
In terms of
like, what is this? An evolving thing.
Well, I just said that. Right?
Starting at League 4, right? Division 4, coming up.
Yeah, it could be that getting promotion, but it's also different trophies, right? If you win one trophy, cool. What's next?
Yeah.
That's what it is, basically. Yeah. It's like, what's next?
Yeah, it's like, how can you facilitate a better improvement, a different improvement? And ultimately, what it does is it builds on top of each other, so it becomes a bigger and bigger transformation. That's the beauty of the whole thing. Awesome. Great chat. Kmak, any final words?
No, I'm just saying to any newbies listening to this, focus on what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. Be the best version of yourself, I think, is the key. And strive to be the best version of yourself, because that will create high performance in yourself if you are striving for high performance.
And always see the journey ahead of you.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.